Difficult. Women.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
You're in my little computer box.
I'm in a tiny box. That's the only way I look to you now is in a small box.
Oh, hello, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome to the pod.
Welcome to the PID. I'm Marie.
I'm Katy. This is the Difficult Women podcast, if you didn't know.
I'm so proud of it.
Just clicked on something by accident. It does. Could happen.
You guys, we've been charting around the world.
Yeah. Like
I think it's
number 3,000 and anywhere. I don't know. What are we tracking?
No, we've been tracking like in the top 200 of podcasts.
That's
Italy,
great.
Australia.
Wow. We're big in Italy.
Another country. I forgot. I should be journaling about this because it's all I have. But it's so exciting.
That's very exciting.
I'm coming to you from Nashville still.
Yep.
And Katy.
Lockdown. I'm still in Brooklyn. Still here, hanging in there. Doing it. Went running. I'm very red right now. I'm sorry how red I am. I can't. I'm just very overheated. It's very hot today. And I was like, I'm going to run, which was a bad idea.
I went for a hike and it poured rain on me. And so now I'm in a sweater all chilled up.
Oh, God. I kind of wish I was in your position, but you know.
Oh, I wish we could switch
Freaky
positions
Friday.
too. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Well, we hope everyone's doing all right out there during these crazy times.
Yeah. I had a moment today because, you know, I'm wearing a mask everywhere I go. That's the other thing that's hard. If it's hot and you're running and you're wearing a mask, it was like a lot, but I made it. And I do it, you do it anyway. But I was having like a moment with the mask today where I was like trying to make a joke with somebody on the street and it just like wasn't happening because you can't, I rely so much on my facial expressions and you just can't see anything. And I was so sad about it. I was like, it'll be fine. It's totally fine. It's not a big deal. But I just can't. I'm not funny with a mask.
Aww.
I mean, I may not be funny anyway. Maybe I'm blaming the mask, but it's just...
No, Katy, you are one of the funniest people on the planet. You're good. You're good.
All right. Well, anyway, I can't make jokes anymore on the street. So
I just use my eye. I do really weird things with my eyes nowadays with the mask on.
Yeah, I could relate to that. My problem is I also tend to wear sunglasses. So you cannot see anything on my face at all. Just like hiding from the world. It's fine.
That feels right about now, though.
Yeah, you know.
Well, we have some exciting news.
Yeah, for sure.
We got some emails.
Some mail.
Oh my God. I swear to God, if I hear you've got mail from AOL anymore, because my dad checks his...
Oh, I was going to say, why are you hearing that?
Oh yeah, he checks his email, 9 times a day, and I hear it. You've got mail.
Amazing.
He loves AOL. He's still on there.
Amazing.
It's crazy. But yes, we got some emails. Katy, do you want to read the first one then?
Absolutely. We got a really great email from Brianna who had a good story for us that you guys might want to hear also. She just listened to the Mind the Gender Data Gap episode that we had done a few months ago. And she says in this email, she says, "Hello, I just finished listening to this episode. I'm listening to the back catalog. And first I have to say I love listening to you too. I love how well spoken you are." Thank you. You mentioned about how you were treated in the doctor's office with birth control, etc. And I have a 2-part story. I'll try to keep it short. I've been on birth control since about freshman year of high school. I've always used a form of the pill. Early 20s, started getting frequent bacterial vaginosis. They want to try hormones internally, so I tried the NuvaRing. A year later, dating a guy about 4 months, I find out I'm pregnant. I make an appointment, not with my regular doctor, but someone close to work. I'm between job 1 and job 2. Just need to get a blood test to confirm, and sure as heck, I'm pregnant. I ask for info on all possible options. I don't know what me and this boyfriend will do. The doctor and nurse who's taking my vitals, each with skating rings on their hands, which I'm assuming she means like a diamond ring or something so that they're married. I don't know. One says, "Oh, I had both my kids by your age." And the other saying, "Yeah, I'm just a little older. I had my second." I thought, whatever, I'll figure it out myself. I took my prenatal vitamin samples, threw them in the trunk of my car, and then went to job 2 for the night. Ended with an abortion and him talking to me again. All he could say, though, was, I'll do whatever you want. Incomes, knowing him for a short time, living 2 hours apart and not an ideal living situation, and common sense seemed correct. Which I think for her, that seems like that was the right choice for sure to get an abortion. I went back to the trusty rusty pill. Fast forward a few years, I moved in with a boyfriend and to a way better job. Comes the time for me to renew my birth control prescription, and the doctor says, 26, are you sure you want birth control? Yeah, I'm sure. Dating my boyfriend a year at the time, in debt, freshly moved. Just thought you might find that interesting. Thanks for reading. I do find that interesting. I don't know. I wonder where she's from. I'd be curious to know that, because I just think that that's not a doctor's job to interject
right
personal opinions on what you should do with your body. Now, they should give you medical advice if you ask for it. Or even if you don't ask for it, it's fine to be like, hey, these are your options. But to be like... all
that judgment.
Are you sure you want to get, all of that? No.
No. Well, thank you for writing. I think that those are important stories to share for sure.
Very good stories.
Ugh.
I'm sorry that you had to go through all that, but good. Thank you for sharing.
And also good for you for, it's your fucking body. You do what you want.
Yeah. No,
Speaking of which, did you see Tennessee passed the heartbeat abortion bill?
Gotta get you out of there, Marie.
I know. A little bit like, oh, shit. Oh,
that's crazy to me.
It's absolutely insane. It's all white people. It's all white supremacists trying to
control people.
Anyway, control.
That's terrible.
Anyway, got another email from a man who wants to keep his identity anonymous. So I won't say his name.
Fair enough.
Let's see if I can. It's kind of long, so bear with me, guys. But hi, was listening to your podcast today, and you invited people to offer opinions, hoping you'll take mine in the honest and respectful spirit it is intended. You spoke about Amy Cooper invoking her white privilege against a black man in Central Park. While this is certainly a big part of the equation, I'd ask you to consider the fact that she is also invoking a certain female privilege over a male, which is to report to police that she feels threatened by a male who simply disagrees with her. As uncomfortable as this idea may make you, I suspect if you got any divorce attorney to speak with you honestly, they would tell you that a strategy of having a woman say she felt threatened was enough for her to get a restraining order and bar a man from living in his home and seeing his children, whether or not he is actually violent. The onus is on him to prove he is nonviolent despite a history of nonviolence. Studies have shown that domestic violence is not something that men enact exclusively on women, and that rather it is more of a 60-40 balance. Yet there are no battered men shelters. By fostering the idea of a patriarchy and of toxic masculinity, we foster the prejudice that men are inherently violent and oppressive by nature. When I point this out to people who espouse the idea I am usually confronted with, the caveat that, well, we're not saying all men, to which I would ask you to consider that this is a similar response Donald Trump gave when he said not all Mexicans. Also, when we talk about systemic racism in policing, we are talking about a policy which, while it certainly affects Black men more, is something that does disproportionately affect all men. Anyway, thanks for reading a different perspective. I wish you and your family health and blah, blah, blah. It was a very nice conclusion.
Yes,
anyway.
yes.
So... Katy, yes, I'm so curious. I did write him back, and I did lead with thank you for taking the time and to have this discourse. So, but I am curious what you would say.
First, I want to say we actually have talked about this on our podcast before. We've done episodes of making sure that men feel supported too in different ways, and that there should be battered men shelters if we need them. You know what I mean? If they feel like that's the thing. I don't know as much about the statistics of men being in a position where they feel so afraid of their relationship that they can't leave in the same way that women do. So I don't know about that. I'd have to look more into it. I am a little confused about some of the Mexican comments, and it feels a little bit like he's coming from a place, and as a white woman during this particular time we're in right now, I think, and you have probably felt the same way, that when you're confronted with things that make you uncomfortable about your demographic, you then try to come up with justifications as to why it's not just you, it's not just whatever. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing a little bit in this email, though, is him trying to come up with justifications as to why women are just as bad as men. Mm. When the facts are with things like abuse and like abusing your privileges, men definitely have more of a privilege than women do historically throughout all sorts of different aspects of life. Specifically about Amy Cooper, do I think that there are some women that use their womenness to get things like, and I mean, I don't know about the Amy Cooper thing. I think the bigger issue is definitely the racism, because she played into that. I think that for him to just call out, oh, well, she's using her female privilege. I mean, maybe, but I'd be much more, I think we really need to talk about the fact that she was like, there's a black man who's harassing me more than anything. You know what I mean? Because if that guy was white, I'm not so sure she would have called the police on it.
Right.
I just am not sure that that really would have happened. So I think he needs to recognize that that is a very big aspect of that dynamic. And if he wants to just blame it on being a woman, he needs to look at himself, I think, about why does he feel the need to do that. The other thing, though, is when he's talking about I know in like divorce court specifically, again, I don't know about I think a lot of women who need, I think a lot of times when a woman is asking for a restraining order in court, she doesn't get it when she needs it. So to then try to use that as an example that like women are always trying to get restraining orders for no reason. I'm like, that's not true. I'm like, that's just not true. What is true, I know from some of my friends, male friends who have gone through divorces, is that sometimes within divorce court, the woman will, they tend to just give the custody to the woman, even if she's not the better parent. And that is something we absolutely have to look at, because that also comes from the patriarchy, because the idea is that the woman is the nurturer and the man is the provider. So like to say that that's not about the patriarchy is actually wrong. It is very much about the patriarchy. I don't think we should let it be the way that we have to look at that, but and fix it. But so those are my thoughts. So I guess I would say it's not all wrong in some respects, but I also think that like that 60-40 number, I don't know where he's coming up with that. With the abuse, that 60% of the abused are women, I'm assuming, and 40% are men. I don't know. Where is that? What number is that? I don't know that number. I've never heard that number.
Yeah. I did start looking at more statistics of women versus men, and it's more women are abused by men.
And to be honest, like there's also just like a size difference. There's all these other elements that are at play that are not equal. We're not coming at this from an equal position. So I think that already, I just can't get on board with this idea that it's very common that women use woman privilege to get this and that. Like only within the system of the patriarchy, because it's the only power we have sometimes. If it's like, if he's really trying to also hedge at like sexual, whatever, trying to, get ahead by sleeping around. It's like, well, for some women, they've felt in times that it's the only thing that they have. When
I did write him back, I did bring up like the Believe All Women popped, that hashtag was trending during the Me Too movement. And and we've talked about it on the podcast as well, is that like, yeah, women lie too. It's not, yes, that stance of believe all women, totally. Women lie.
Women lie, everybody lies.
Men lie. Yeah, right.
So, that's fine. But like to then just go toward that it's just that most women don't lie about things like that.
Right.
And most women,
please don't listen to them when they come up.
Exactly. So whether or not they lie, they still don't usually get, people, they still don't get whatever, like they don't get justice if they're not lying. But one thing that is very prevalent in our society is white women trying to implicate black men in things, and then the black men getting blamed when maybe there wasn't a thing. And that's what Amy Cooper was doing. So that is more of a racial problem than it is about a woman problem specifically. Is a white woman problem towards people, men of color. But that's also different than just saying. Because I think what he's sort of trying to get at is he's trying to avoid the fact that we're talking about race right now in this conversation about Amy Cooper. Because then he's bringing up Mexicans and stuff. I'm like, what are you trying to say here? You're trying to, and even the thing about the jailing and how, well, all men get treated badly by the police. I'm like, well, first of all, okay, then let's fix the police, And secondly, I just rewatched 13.
Yes, I watched that last week as well.
That number again, that like 1 out of 17, I think it's 1 out of 17 white men will at some point be incarcerated. 1 out of 3 black men will. So don't tell me, oh, men, you know what I mean? Right. Don't tell me that. Just don't.
Yeah.
Also, it's like, and the percentage of black men in the United States was something like 7%. But then they make up like 40% of the prison population. Something insane. It was like some crazy numbers. So don't tell me that. Just don't. I just am not going to get on board with that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad it's worthy discussion. I mean,
oh my God. Thank you for writing. I'm not,
absolutely.
I wish you were in the room with me so we could talk more about it. But thank you for sending in the email.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, anonymous man.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of trying to stay anonymous, if you want to order something, you can sort of do it anonymously. I think that the package is very anonymous. I'm trying to make a connection.
You're doing great.
You want some sex toys and you don't want people to know that you ordered sex toys? Have we got a place for you?
Check it out.
Free stuff is awesome, but free stuff to spice up your bedroom is even better.
Select almost any one item for 50% off, and then Adam and Eve loads on the free stuff.
Enter offer code HORIO at checkout and get 10 tantalizing free gifts.
A sexy item for him, a special gift for her, and a third item you'll both enjoy.
And 6 free spicy movies.
Ooh! Plus, free shipping.
That's HORIO, WHOREO, HORIO at adamandeve.com.
We're back ready to discuss something that honestly, this whole topic has blown my fucking mind.
Knew it. I knew it because when I brought it up, you were sort of like, okay, whatever. I was like, just wait till she reads about this.
Jesus fucking Christ, this has opened my eyes. I literally had no idea about my own body.
This is so exciting. Okay, you guys, are you ready? Let me tell you why I wanted to talk about this subject. I wanted to bring this up because I texted Marie drunkenly one night, like 2 weeks ago, because I was watching a show called Married at First Sight. It's a reality show. And it's about these like people that they like decide they're going to get married and then they don't even meet the person until they're at the altar. It's so awkward. It's like so crazy. And they did, by the way, get married. It was in Charlotte, and they got married in the same place our friends Holden and Lexi got married.
No way.
So I was like, oh my God, we've been there. But anyway, so everything about the show I was very into. But then it turned out, this is the most recent season. If you haven't seen it yet, sorry, spoilers ahead. One of the women, she was like 26, 27, something like that. Very beautiful, very lovely. Married this like perfect, amazing man. She was a virgin. She is a virgin. So I was freaking out after the first episode. I texted Maria. I was like, this virgin woman is going to have sex with some random guy now because she thought like that, she had to save herself for marriage. And like, that's so fucked up that like we live in a world that whatever. So I was like going off. Again, okay, I'm going to do a spoiler. So if you really want to watch the show, just go put your fingers in yours for a second. Spoiler alert. At the end of the show, they decide if they're going to get divorced or stay together. And he had to say divorce because they never had sex, which was good, thank God, because she really had this, her virginity was so precious to her. It was very much a religious thing. You could tell the dynamic with her and her father was kind of weird. And he was like crying so much at the wedding and didn't want to like lose his baby, which was creepy as hell. And, because it was so intensely precious, it was like the center of all the problems that they had. Otherwise, they got along great as a couple. They were very attracted to each other, but she also just wasn't sexually advanced at all. Mm-hmm. And it just held her back like a lot. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with still being a virgin at any age. All of these decisions are totally acceptable. Maybe don't go on a reality show about getting married if you're in that position. Right. But like, all that's totally fine. It's just that it was really fascinating to watch what I think she didn't expect it to be as big of a deal to him as it was. Mm. And it wasn't a big deal to him because he was like, oh, I want to fuck, or like he wasn't like that at all. He was just like, we don't connect sexually because we don't have the same experience, like life experience. And it was really kind of sad that was this thing that it was like she had been told her whole life, like, this is a precious thing. And she kept saying, like, I thought he would be excited that I was a virgin. Like, I thought that would be like a plus. And it seems to be a minus. And in some ways, like, yeah, it's a minus if like he doesn't feel like he can be your equal. You know what I mean? And that he feels like
pressure on him
for both of them.
And for both, yeah.
It was intense.
But I mean, could you imagine? I just could not.
No.
God, if you went on a date and the guy was like, I'm a virgin.
I'd be like,
But
do you
I
wanna
would,
listen tonight?
I know, I'd have two thoughts of it. Like, I'd want to be, oh, how I feel so honored to take your virginity. But then also like, no, he's not going to be able to keep up because I mean,
No, I mean, I think
know.
it's so, I mean, totally. I think that that's part of the thing about it. And again, there's nothing wrong with, if you really want to stay a virgin a long time, that's totally fine. It's just that why? And that's what we're going to talk about today, which is basically the myth of virginity. It's a totally socially constructed concept. It has nothing to do with medical science. There's nothing real about virginity other than, well, there actually is nothing real about it.
Right. Okay. Well, so here's the thing that blew my fucking mind.
Yeah.
Because I asked you a couple weeks ago if my hymen grew back because It's been so long during quarantine since I've had sex. Your hymen, it's not a, like we've always been taught or told or whatever, shoved down our throats. It's not a barrier.
Right.
It's not something to break. And I watched this TED Talk of these two doctors that were talking about the hymen, and this woman held up a hula hoop with cellophane on it, and she punched it through. And that is what I've always envisioned what the hymen is, because you're taught that it's a barrier that is broken. But then she holds up a huge scrunchie and says, this is what a hymen looks like. Yeah. It's actually a membrane around the opening of your vagina that stretches and that cannot be broken.
So what's interesting with this is now I guess we never talked about the details of what we thought a hymen was. Like you and I just privately never were like, what do you think a hymen looks like?
I'm sure we would have gotten there on tour.
Yeah, I mean, eventually. But I mean, I'm almost shocked that we never did. But I do remember once. So I don't know what your experience was with sex for the first time in terms of your hymen specifically, but I know I've said to you before, and I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but that I didn't have any hymen experience. There was no sensation about a ripping. There was no blood at all when I had sex. I rode horses and stuff and rode a bike, but I never had a moment where I was like, ow. And I've heard of other stories where women had been like, I was riding a horse and all of a sudden I felt something. I was like, ouch. I never had any of that. And it's possible that I just never had a hymen really, that there just wasn't something there. And I remember one time sort of saying something in passing to you about it and you kind of being like, ha ha ha. And I was like, oh. And so it's because I think that was just which is fine. But I think you probably didn't realize that you could maybe not have a hymen.
Right.
Right. And now I'm like, oh, that's why she left.
Sorry.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't even insulting. Yeah, I think you just were like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Of course she has a hymen. But when I was looking through those things again, they make a good point. It's like, if it was a barrier, you wouldn't be able to have your period.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And they said just the only thing to say, the most barrier-like hymen is called a perforated hymen, and that can be more like a barrier, and so sometimes you can just get it can be a problem. So you just get it surgically snipped or whatever.
But small, it's rare. It's very rare.
Very rare, and I think you do it much younger. It wouldn't be so much around, it's when you start, I guess, having maybe your period or something, you notice.
Well, I was reading, a doctor was explaining that your hymen is actually kind of like baby teeth, is that you do need it as a young girl, a young child, because it keeps out germs and bacteria and dirt. And it has a purpose. But then once you reach adolescence and puberty and stuff, it's not really needed. Like baby teeth, you grow out of it. And so it does stretch. And as far as the bleeding goes, there's actually very few blood vessels in the hymen. Again, not a doctor. This stuff blew my mind because I had no idea. Because my experience, all right, I'm just going to get real, I guess. But, when I was 15 years old, I had a boyfriend, some fingering happening, some blood. And I was like, well, he popped my cherry. I definitely thought that there was a barrier that was broken and there was blood, because that is what I was taught.
Did you see anything about, was the blood related to the hymen, or you didn't get that far in your exploration? I mean, not exploration with the boyfriend, but exploration in
so actually, this is fascinating. So hymens do not bleed, or very rarely bleed. It's actually, when you do bleed, it's because of trauma inside. Whether it's too dry, it's not well lubricated, it's forced
It's interesting. And that maybe
Yeah.
like, because nothing has really been in there before.
Right. And your body's just not used to this foreign object being inside you. But also you're so inexperienced that you don't know your own body yet. And so maybe you didn't do floor play, or maybe, you
have no idea
didn't
what
get
you're
it
doing.
all ready
course.
and
Well,
ready
nobody
for
knows
it.
what they're doing. So it's like,
Right.
kind of.
So when actually there is blood, it's because of too
Trauma.
much pounding.
Yeah.
Again, I'm
Well,
not
there
a
was
doctor.
this horrible story I read about this girl talking about losing her virginity and kind of being like, oh yeah, there was so much blood, and then almost bragging that like, because this is what they teach you. They teach you
Yes.
you're supposed to bleed, and if you don't, there's something wrong with you. Like you're more virginal, you're more pure if you bleed or whatever. So I remember being like so surprised that I didn't bleed, because I was like, oh, what happened? And I hadn't done a lot of other things, so I was like, oh, I mean, it was fine, but I was just like, oh, okay. But there was a girl that was saying this horrible story about how she, and again, she was almost like proud of it, that then she went to the gynecologist, and the gynecologist was like horrified at the state of her vagina because it was so swollen and like
Oh, no.
bruised, and she just didn't know that wasn't acceptable sex. And she even left the doctor not understanding that, because we are told you're supposed to bleed and it's good. And if you don't bleed, then you're lying. Then you're a liar. And this, certainly in like other countries where they're really, really into the virginity things, that like, if you don't bleed, you could get in really big trouble as a woman, because they just think that you are lying about being a virgin. And like, there's actually no way to physically check to see if someone is still a virgin or not.
Right. And they're still doing 2-finger virginity checks. Google it, because the first thing that comes up is so disturbing. It's like fathers, police.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, and some of the reasons why they do those checks, which is to me like, just, this is like so illogical, and so exactly why men should not be running anything in terms of like female body. This is a perfect example of why a man should not make any decisions about a woman's body ever, about anything ever, ever, ever. Because one of the reasons why they have virginity checks is to see if a woman has been raped or not. So like if a woman says she's been raped, and they don't do this in the United States in this way, at least. They probably, I know that they do different things, but in India was where they were talking about it specifically when I was reading about it, but there might be other places. If a woman claims she's been raped, they do a virginity test to see if she was actually raped or not, which doesn't make any sense. None of that makes sense. And they were saying that a woman very rarely would say she was raped if she wasn't, especially because she knows she's going to have to go through this test or whatever. But also they were saying that, so if she has been raped, which is probably the case, just the act of like doing the virginity test on her is re-traumatizing her for whatever it was that she had to go through in the first place. And it's traumatizing, period, to have to go through something like that. And it's very public, and it's something that then now the information is out about whether she's this or that, and like it has nothing to do with rape. You know what I mean? Like your virginity has nothing to do with rape. But that's, in these countries like that's a woman is worthless or point, has no value if she's not a virgin.
Well, I think it was last year that T.I., the rapper.
Yes, I was going to bring this up too.
I remember it when it came out last year. So I guess he was on a podcast, and he was talking, the Ladies Like Us podcast, and he was speaking, and then he said the rapper, he has 6 children, and he brought up how he handles the discussion about sex with his oldest daughter. And then he said, not only have we had the conversation, we have yearly trips to the gynecologist to check her hymen. Yes, I go with her, he said. And then Planned Parenthood actually immediately tweeted out when all this stuff was going down, I don't know who needs to hear this, but virginity is a made-up social construct, and it has absolutely nothing to do with your hymen. Thank you, Planned Parenthood. Always the voice of reason.
Yeah, so there's that part of the whole, like, that disturbing element of this, that like there's some doctor out there that's like, yeah, no problem, we'll check her hymen for you. He's a doctor, or she's a doctor, and they should know better than that. Number two, what I read was that this girl had done at 15, or what his daughter had to do at 15 was sign a contract for the doctor saying that she would allow her dad to like have this information. But just by nature of her being 15 meant that she couldn't give consent like that because she's a minor. So that's already manipulative. So who the fuck doctor was doing this? I mean, that infuriates me anyway. Then in addition to this, and this is part of the issue around virginity, is that a woman's virginity is like allowed to be public knowledge, and that people treat it like her own father is treating it like something that he can just talk about in public. That's not anybody's business. It's certainly not our father's business. It's not T.I.'s business, but it's certainly not my business or anybody else's business. So the fact that he even, like, there's an ownership that he's then feeling over her to even feel like he has the right to talk about that, let alone have the right to know and be in the doctor's office and know anything about her body in that way. That is not parenting. And I read a thing too about why that's so destructive as a parent. And the number one reason is because it ruins trust between you and your child, because your child is not going to trust you if you're like being a creepy. And also, do you not trust your child to make the right decisions for herself? If you raised your kid right, then that child will make the right decision for her and him.
Mm-hmm. The virginity test check thing is just so, and that it's still happening in the world today.
It should not be happening. If it was a thing you could actually check, it still shouldn't be happening. Right. But the fact that you actually don't get any real information from these checks makes it like just mind-bogglingly upsetting that it happens. Right. Still.
And that a doctor in the United States would play along.
Would do that.
Yeah. Well, I did read that the practice of virginity testing was condemned by the World Health Organization, UN Human Rights, and UN Women in 2018. 2 years ago, this has been condemned. And it's a 2-finger freaking examination of the vagina.
Also, like, if that was a way to test someone's virginity, wouldn't you break their hymen by doing that?
Right.
Like, what is the logic behind this? This is such a man's perspective of how a woman's body should work. I don't even have words for this. Nonsense. Right. It's nonsense.
Yeah. It's a powerful tool to control a woman's body. Like it's been this way of being able to just, like you said, it's property. Yeah. Even like I will never have my father walk me down the aisle. What that represents is like literally I am his property and he is giving me away to my partner.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought that much about that, but I think that's a good point. But if that's like a thing, that there'd be some, or there'd be some reason be like,
that's what it represents.
Like, maybe you do it because you want your dad to participate, but not like.
No, when I get married, mom and dad are going to be there in the golf cart, and we're going to, we'll ride down the aisle together. Yeah, it'll be great. And no judgment on anyone who's had that. I've always dreamt forever that I'm going to have my dad walk me down the aisle. But now that I know what it represents, I don't know.
Right. No, I think.
But it is about it all goes back to property and ownership and me telling you what to do with your body.
Well, and then there was a couple other things that make it like so. It's so problematic. Like it's like this isn't just us like being like feminist with a capital S, like getting upset about nothing. It's like this is the shit that like affects us each individually as women for the rest of our lives. And there was a couple reasons why I found this. Okay, I'm going to cite my sources. I like prepared for this. I went to wildflowersex.com and they have a section called Virginity Myth, and they did not have anybody's name associated with this blog, but somebody's writing it. I just couldn't figure out who. Anyway, so number one, it's sexist to have an idea. Just the idea of virginity is a sexist concept. Number one, because like all the things we said that like, it makes a woman feel like property and all that. But also that whilst virginity is like a concept also for boys, it's that thing where it's like if a boy loses his virginity, it's like, he's great, whatever. He can do it anytime he wants. The younger, the better in our society or whatever. Whereas a woman is trying to save herself, that her purity is so tightly wound with this notion of her virginity. Her value is so tightly bound with her virginity. So that's a sexist concept, right? Also, it's that thing too about like a woman's virginity historically with marriage, and even with this poor girl in this a reality show. Like, why should we have to know what her virginity is? Like, why does that have to be a thing that then, but it is a thing because it's a thing, because they've made it a thing. And she's bought into this thing where then she like has to kind of publicly announce that she's still a virgin by choice and, make it a whole thing. But it's like not anybody's business. So that's annoying that a woman's virginity has to be like paraded around.
God damn it. I hate The Bachelor and Bachelorette, those reality shows. But I did watch whatever season it was recently that the guy, the Bachelor, was a virgin. And they made it such a big deal. And you know what? Now that you're saying all this, I played right into that. And the producers made it so hugely part of the story is that he was a virgin. And then in the end, he met someone, I don't know, it was horrible. That show was so bad. But he then did pick someone. But then when finally, it's like the finale that everyone's, there's candles and there's a whole live audience. And they're like, did you lose your virginity? And I literally was like, did he?
Yeah.
Did he do it?
we make it such a big deal. And did he?
Oh my God.
What was the answer?
No. He was like, it's none of your business.
Oh,
and I was like,
God.
Fuck.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, that was awesome. But I was right there. Oh, God, I'm part of the problem too.
I mean, we're all part of the problem. We are like conditioned. It's so much, it's so conditioned into our life. Here's another really important point and I'm going to quote this then from the wildflowersex.com as I cite my sources. This stood out to me as so important too. Okay. Positioning sex from the very beginning as something that you lose, give, or take teaches unnecessary power dynamics and a harmful sexual hierarchy. Instead, sex should be something that you share or don't with others consensually. But this idea that you're like, I'm going to give you my virginity, like a woman gives her virginity to a man in that sense, right? Like that's very common.
Yeah, the V card.
You lose your virginity to a man. And not that like a boy can lose his virginity to a woman. It just doesn't have the same weight to it. But that already is then setting up this power dynamic that like he then is taking something from you. You are losing something to this person. You're losing a part of your power because we're making it a powerful thing. You're giving your purity to somebody. You're giving your worth to this guy because, you lose and then who are you after the first time you have sex? You are worth less than you were 10 minutes before because after one act. So like, if anybody's listening now and going like, well, what do you call it then? Or but isn't it like an act? Like, how do you identify this? And I thought that, this other thing that I read called The Virginity Myth, Let's Think of Sex Like Disneyland by Crystal Yuen on Healthline, if you want to look it up. She was saying that like gaining an experience and not losing an identity is the way we should think about this.
Ooh, I love that. Say that. Can you say that one more time?
Yes. Losing your virginity is not losing an identity. It's gaining an experience.
That's beautiful.
And isn't that much more accurate of
Yes.
like what that is? Because it's not like you have it once. And her whole point about her whole Disneyland thing is that like, if you remember the first time you went to Disneyland or Disney World, were you disappointed? Was it everything you thought it was going to be? Was it, maybe some people go and they have like the most magical experience. And some people it was like kind of hyped up and maybe like it was raining that day and they didn't have a great time at Disneyland the first time. But the idea that you can't ever go back to Disneyland and have a better experience in the future, that's the same with sex. It's like you don't just like have it once and then you're like, well, it was good or bad and then that's over. And then that is, it is
Right.
what it is forever. But there's like some statistics that say that like, because there's so much pressure on that first time that so much then of your sex life can be set up by that first time where it shouldn't be. why should there be so much pressure on that first time? So they were saying that, and this isn't for everybody, because I know everybody's had a very variety of experiences, and a lot of them are not the best first time experiences. I know that's normal, but they said that they found that the people who had more positive first time experiences had higher levels of satisfaction, like down the line, which is just saying that why, like, so your first experience is going to affect the way that you feel about sex in 6 years, for example. Mm-hmm. But part of the reason why that is because of the pressure the first time. Mm-hmm. So if something goes wrong that first time and it ruins your virginity loss and you gave it away to the wrong time at the wrong person, then you're like, you're filled with guilt, or you're filled with like
shame,
regret or shame.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Right.
For no reason. Whereas the truth is, like, yeah, sex the first time can be awkward and weird for a lot of us, and like that's okay. Like, so then we try it again. Like, why does it have to be a thing the first time? Who cares?
I felt so much pressure when I lost my virginity to make sure that the relationship stayed intact. And I stayed with my boyfriend then for 3 years throughout college, because I was like, well, I really have to make this work because I lost my virginity to him. And yes, he was a great guy, but like, sure wish
maybe
I could have had
made different choices. Yeah, maybe you.
But that pressure of staying with him, because I lost my virginity to him, was just so, because I was raised Christian and I was really trying to wait till marriage. And then, I mean, I just had to have him because he was so funny. But, you know, I didn't have to stay with him for 3 years afterwards. Really, truly.
Right. Well, and my like experience was different from that. And again, I think I may have talked about this in the podcast before, but I had this like very like beautifully perfect like losing virginity story, but it was not with a boyfriend. It was like with this guy that I had sort of been dating, and I was just ready. Like I just was like ready, and he couldn't have been more perfect and sensitive about the whole thing. But then like when I think about that first time, then setting it up for the future, for me, the story that stands out the most, and I've talked to you about this before, is that the second time I ever had sex was also with him, and I was on my period, and I was like, oh no, we can't have sex because I'm on my period, and he was like, it doesn't matter. He's like, it's hot to be on your period, and the fact that was like so early on in my sexual experience, this positive reinforcement that my body was okay, really affected the way I felt about period sex forever. Mm-hmm. And now I'm like, if you don't like it, get the fuck out of here. What the fuck is wrong with you? You know, because I was very lucky,
right,
that he happened to give me an experience early on that was very positive, body positive.
And I was with the guy that deemed when I was on my period it was blowjob week,
which is much more common. I
so
think.
Fucked up,
but that's much more common.
Much more common.
So my point just being that, like, I think that, like, it does make sense that sometimes these initial experiences can affect you long term. So why not take the pressure off so that we can be doing these things as a couple, and not like in a weird, because again, there's the power dynamic. If he's saying, well, it's blowjob week now, that's a power dynamic. That's him deciding what happens in that relationship, as opposed to two people having like a sexual experience with each other. Because it's like, okay, well, it's blowjob week, but also now it's eating me out week. Like, you know what I mean? Or whatever. Like, I don't know. Or it's something else. Or now we, you know, I don't know. It could be anything between the couple, which sort of brings up another interesting problematic issue with this concept of virginity, which is that, like, nobody knows what, you know, I think that we tend to think that virginity is like when you finally have like penis and vagina, right? Mm-hmm. But like, there's a lot of people that do a lot of other stuff like penis and butt or whatever for a long time. And like, then is that virginity? And losing your virginity is like touching each other, losing your virginity is penis and mouth virginity loss. There's like so many, it's like so hazy. And yet there's supposed to be this like very clear expectation of what losing your virginity is. And one of the problems with that, aside from just like that's so arbitrary, it also reinforces heteronormative standards and like cisgendered ideals, and that kind of that sex is only penis and vagina, and that sex is not anything else except for penis and vagina, and that's just not true. We've talked a lot about how sex is so many things. And we talked about like those when we did the abstinence episode, how like we shouldn't be so worried about abstinence. We should just be worried more about like, let kids touch each other. Let kids do other kind of sexual things safely, you know, and then they can work their way up to penetrative sex if that's what they want to do, or you know what I mean? But like, let people know that sex is all the things, you know?
I think that's such a good point.
And how does that affect, like, if, let's say you're a lesbian woman and you never, ever, ever get penetrated by a male penis, does that make you like a virgin forever? I mean, no, of course not. Like, that's not how that works. So anyway, fuck virginity.
Yeah.
I'm like over it. I'm definitely not going to put that pressure on my kids. And even just the pressure you feel like in school, talking about it, and like, you know, we can take some of that off too.
Yeah. Well, I found a list. I think it's very similar to what you just read, but this is from everydayfeminism.com. And so it does list some of the things you mentioned, but also the thing that they really talk about is that how virginity contributes to so much slut shaming.
Totally. But it's like you can't win. Because remember, like, I don't know if I remember this feeling. And I wanted to ask you, and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but just to piggyback on the slut shaming, it was like in high school, it was like if you waited too long, you were a prude. Or if you didn't put out, you were a prude. But if you put out, then you were a slut. And there was no in between. It was like there was no... I got broken up with by a boy, and I found out through my friend's dad because this is the worst story. But my friend's dad, a girlfriend of mine, her dad was the leader of this kid's Eagle Scout troop. And apparently after he broke up with me, this boy who was in Eagle Scouts was telling all the boys at Eagle Scouts that they broke up because I wouldn't put out.
Oh.
And for some reason then the dad was like, can you tell Katy that he's been talking shit about her? So then at lunch, this girl had to come up to me and be like, my dad said. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was horrifying. And I was like, I don't care. That was what I always said when I cared about something. I don't care. It's fine. Whatever. But I was so hurt.
You had to find out from the dad.
I don't know. It's the worst. But yeah, it was just like I felt like a prude. But yet I was like, you know, I'm still not ready. Sorry. Not sorry. I was like 15. I was like, I'm just not ready yet. But I also just like I was strong enough in my own mind or something, or my own something, that I wasn't feeling like external pressure. And then when I did lose it finally with that guy, I didn't care that he wasn't my boyfriend. I was just like, oh, I'm ready now. Just like one day I woke up and was like, I'm ready. And I don't know, it was like a Pop-Tart or something coming out of the oven or a toaster oven. I was
so sheltered.
For you, did you feel pressure to do stuff, or did you feel like you just did stuff when you wanted, and even leading up to the actual virginity loss, quote unquote? Because I did some stuff, but I didn't do. I did it when I was ready.
I felt very sheltered, I think, growing up. And so, and in the Christian community of, you know, saving yourself for marriage. But so honestly, I don't know if I was just like completely unaware of that people were having sex in high school, but none of my friends were having sex. People were like dry humping left and right, and, you know, hand jobs and a couple of blow jobs and things like that. But like, I didn't know anybody having sex. And so that actually never was the case with my boyfriends. We did all the other stuff pretty much, but
like when you did all the other stuff, did you feel like I don't want to do this? Or it was like, oh, everyone was kind of on the same page?
Everyone was on the same page. I mean, I remember the first time that, like, you know, a young lad touched my genitalia, and you know, and feeling, I did feel shame. I think when it first happened, I immediately called a friend, I remember, and was like, am I going to burn in hell? And she was like, dude, you've liked this guy for a year and you finally just you got him. So like, you know, if there's any time that you don't feel comfortable, you just, you know, obviously tell him to stop. And he was very respectful. Right. And that was my, you know, my first boyfriend when I was 15, and we did a lot of different things. But then actually he did break up with me because I learned later that he had another girlfriend that he met at church camp that would sleep with him.
That's kind of what happened with this boy. He started sleeping with this other girl and was like, I'm going to break. I know, but when he broke up with me, he told me that. But then he didn't tell me I wouldn't put out. He just said like, hey, actually, I like had sex with someone else, so we should break up. And I was like, okay, whatever. I don't care.
Right.
And I did care.
But I did have a sense.
If you're listening, you're not listening.
My virginity was very important to me, and I wanted to make sure to lose it to the right person. And I did have one guy that I felt a lot of pressure from in college, and so much so that I went to the gynecologist and got birth control and was like ready to make love for the first time. But he had to wait a month because the birth control, once you start birth control, you have to wait 3 weeks or whatever. Yeah. But he couldn't even wait a month. And so we broke up within that month. But it was just for me, it was a lucky circumstance of knowing that like he was in it. He was with me for the wrong reasons. And then I was able to,
well, and that could have been but that also could have been such a painful experience if like, then he finally had sex with you and then just dumped you.
Oh,
like, think of,
absolutely.
And that happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
Think of like how much that affects young women, especially after their first time. And like, they're like, I'm giving you this very precious thing, like take care of it. And then they're like, nah, whatever.
Right.
And then you're taught that now you're worth less.
Right. Oh,
like that's terrible.
But this is where like I feel like we're doing so much of this like unlearning right now. We're all working very hard at this stuff. But even with this, I just imagine what kind of conversations do you have with your children, or not children, you're not going to talk to a 5-year-old about this, but like your preteens and really start the dialogue early to understand that, virginity, it is important that you're in a safe, consensual, but I love what you said about the shared experience.
Right.
I think that if you can lean into that as parents,
and
of course we're talking to parents, but we're not parents, so who knows?
Right.
But I don't know how
somebody's got a kid out there. But also like when you do start talking to your little kid, because sexuality ed, right, can start at a young age.
Right.
We've talked about this too, that you should talk to your little kids about being not like sexual beings in the sense that they should be having sex, but just that they are going to be exploring themselves at some point. You know what I mean?
Right.
There are going to be like having feelings, and little boys touch their penises and little girls touch their vaginas in the bathtub, and they're like exploring, and to not put shame around that. Maybe make it clear you cannot do this in public because it's a private thing that you do, but that if you're doing it in private and you're not hurting yourself, then, it's fine. There's nothing wrong. That's just, everybody does it. It's so normal. But don't be like, don't touch yourself. No, don't, you're embarrassing me. Like that. No, don't do that. Don't say that.
And then we did talk about that the hymen cannot be broken from bike riding or tampon or horseback riding. That all of that stuff
it can be stretched. It can be
stretched.
It can be
not
like thinned
broken.
out and stretched. So yeah, because it doesn't get broken at all, like you were saying.
I've had friends tell me that they thought that they didn't bleed during sex, so they thought that their hymen broke during riding a horse.
Everybody thinks. Yeah,
it's actually printed. The horseback riding and the biking is actually this woman's TED Talk. They said that in the UK there's some website that actually has that you could break it, and so it's. Doctors are spreading the myths too.
You know why? Because when it's just, and that comes back to the gender gap conversation we had, where when they study bodies, the standard body is a male body. So when anything is like not like a standard male body, they just kind of guess. And then they just tell them like it's fact.
But a fun fact about an elephant is that their hymen actually breaks when they give birth.
How do they get the sperm in there?
I don't know.
They must have a perforated hymen though too. There's got to be like some little holes or something. How else could happen?
Yeah.
But then and then if they have multiple babies, does their hymen grow back?
Oh, let's see. This doctor was tweeting about it because I was like, of course, I'm like out of all that.
So
I'm like,
a doctor's gonna learn about a elephant hymen, but they won't learn about a human hymen. Great, perfect.
No, she was trying to make her point of just like, where's the elephant statistic? Hold on, because I did.
Look up the elephant statistics, quick, Marie.
I'm trying. Where did it go?
Oh, speaking of the word hymen, I just wanted to mention that when the TI thing was happening, the ladies on The View, I was looking up the ladies on The View talking about it. First of all, I was very disappointed in most people's responses to it because they were focused on, I don't know, some part of it. I don't remember. But I mean, it was fine. I didn't disagree with most of them except this one fucking dumb bitch on there. Whatever. Sorry, but I didn't like her. And I don't know who she was. She was like somebody I didn't know. But I'll tell you who did the best job getting upset about it, and I was shocked that I was on her side, was Meghan McCain.
Oh, really?
She talked about how when she was like, because she was talking about basically like how it's so embarrassing and how that's going to affect his daughter's life forever now that everybody knows like the status of her virginity and like that it's a conversation thing. And she used as an example, she's like, I get it, it's not the same thing. But she's like, when my dad was on some news program, he like outed me that I was like like in love with Leonardo DiCaprio, and it was the most mortifying thing ever because it was private and it was like my own little thing, and he thought it was like okay to share that, and she's like, and that's not even close to being the same thing. And so she's like, so, and if I was that affected by that, I can just imagine that this girl is like really going to suffer with that, and that just the lack of respect for her privacy. But then anyway, so but that wasn't why I brought up the view. I brought up the view because this one other woman who I also did not recognize, I don't know who she was, but she was saying, she was trying to make the point about the hymen. She's like, see, the thing about the hymen is, and then Joy Behar was like, they said we can't say that. We can't say that word. And then Whoopi's like, what, hymen? We can't say hymen?
God.
And Whoopi looks right over at the producer, who's this like awkward white guy who looks very nervous all of a sudden. And she's like, we can't say hymen? She's like, we have to be able to say hymen. It is a medical term. It is what we are talking about. And this is the problem. And then they kind of also talked about that for a second. We're like, this is the problem. If you won't even let us say a medical term about the thing, that is what they are checking for when they do the test.
Right.
So like, how
get
can
your
we not
shame
say
and judgment away.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that was what then the woman sort of pivoted to that, saying like, this is the whole point, is that like you make us feel shameful about our sexuality and our bodies when you say we can't say a medical part of our body.
That is such a good point. Go Whoopi.
Yeah, I love her.
I do too. I love her so much.
Yeah. Oh, the only other thing I wanted to say is that you said something about, we've been talking about, at some point you said something about female energy or something, right?
Female what?
Energy or something? Women doing something good. Anyway, I'm going to piggyback on that even though, because I'm sure you said it. I can't remember why. But so, yeah. Oh, did you say something about female energy?
Of
Marie?
course.
Okay, well, just speaking of which, I just wanted to put it out there that early this morning there was a solar eclipse, new moon solar eclipse, I think it was, and it is in Cancer. And this is important because I was like reading about like, well, what is this eclipse going to be about? And it's very much about a shift into feminine energy, and it's going to last for the whole year.
Well, did you know that they recalculated
a time?
They recalculated the Mayans' calendar for the end of the world?
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
But today is that day. But the Mayans believed that the interpretation of the end of the world, it was wrong. It's not the end of the world. It's the shift of humanity, of females taking over. So
that's
world.
Fucking crazy though. That is totally in alignment with astrology right now. And the literal, like, not even just astrology, but like there was a full-blown big new moon solar eclipse that hadn't happened. There hadn't been something in some sort of alignment hadn't happened since 2001, which was the year of 9/11. But also there was some other kind of conjunction or whatever that hadn't happened in like 500 years or something. So like this is like big moon energy, you guys.
Yeah, I got crystals up my hoo-ha right now.
It's like up in there.
Getting, yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, women who run the world, girls. Soon. Just give us a minute.
Give us a minute. Give us that fucking VP position.
Stacey Abrams. That's who I vote for. That's my personal endorsement.
Yeah, I do like her a lot. I like Susan Rice too.
I don't know as much about her. I need to like.
She used to work for Obama.
Yes. I remember her.
This was great. And honestly, Katie, I have to say thank you, because when I got your drunk text of like, we need to do something about virginity, I'm like,
yeah, you were like, sure.
But I mean, let's just recap real quick. It's a fucking social construct that needs to be done away with, because it's just putting women as property and lowering our status in life.
And also that whole heteronormative thing too,
right?
And just that is defining sex in like surrounded by male penis,
right?
And like women vagina, which is not fair.
Not into male penis right now. I'm sorry, just not. That's all.
I cannot get on board with that statement.
We'll see.
I'm still real horny. It's fine. It's been months since I've touched another human.
Oh, I know, Katie. I'm a baby girl. I'm coming. I'm gonna be there in 2 weeks. I'll hold you.
Thanks. Just cradle me, rock me.
Yes, I swear. Actually, I'll embrace you.
Perfect.
You're going to start humping my leg, and I'm going to have to kick you off.
I won't be able to control myself.
But here's to wishful thinking that we'll be potting together and 10 feet apart soon.
I bet we can. Outside with a mask on.
Outside. That's right.
Perfect. Well, I hope everyone's good. I hope you learned something, y'all.
Yeah, literally Google what a hymen looks like, because every time I put on a scrunchie now.
It looks like a scrunchie. Yeah.
I'm going to never wear a scrunchie the same, but I love it. It's great. If you guys have any, thoughts on this, any stories, we're so curious. And please keep listening. If you haven't rated, review our podcast, that really helps. Let us know new topics if anything comes to mind.
Yeah, if there's something you want to hear about.
Yeah.
Hear us talk about. What do you want to hear us talk about?
This is great. But thank you. Thanks.
All right. Yeah. And you can follow us on Patreon. Join us on Patreon. We do a little mini pod on Fridays, Huddle with the Horse. The positivity. We try to be positive on the podcast. But it's a fun little nugget. We try to do more things on there, special things. And
maybe we'll start selling difficult women scrunchies. That would be so funny to me.
Totally.
Would y'all buy that? Or maybe all proceeds can go to Planned Parenthood. Yeah, to you. Sorry. I know. We don't have jobs, so we need money. Okay.
You're kidding me? No, or it's maybe half the thing or something.
All right. Please, everybody, stay safe, healthy, wear a mask. We love you.
Wash your hands. Bye.
Your text tonight and do what I gotta do. Haven't given up on dating, but I'm not staying in. No, tonight I'm eating out. I'm an open-minded kind of gal, never been a picky eater, and you know there's nothing sweeter than the taste of a lady's beaver. I don't want no wrong. A 5-course meal that's bigger like a gun. I ordered up some good loving, but I'm not staying in. No, tonight I'm eating out. Some tried it once in college, but they can't handle the babe buffet. Need a sophisticated palate to enjoy this hot entree. Sauces, gumdrops, sweet as pie, culinary cunnilingus delight. Sorry, ma'am, might never see me again once I take a bite. Might not be your cup of tea, but I ain't got no reservations. The world's my oyster, I'll slurp it up. Ain't worried about starvation. You may say, hey, how do you know that there's no dining finer? Well, I won't be discreet, I know that bitch is sweet, cause I do have a vagina. Don't want nothing floppy, tonight we're getting sloppy. If you savor the flavor, she might return the favor. I'm sampling women.